If you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge.
Find out what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Extreme results takes extreme measures.
On this podcast with Gustavo Dantas, it all begins with one simple mindset. If you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. That's one of the ideas Gustavo is going to share with you. And those are your marching orders. And here are 3 things that you can do, making amazing things happen in your own life so that you can overcome the odds and still be a champion. Number 1, ask for help. When you're doing something you don't know much about, find somebody who does know about that. Get a guide at your side. Find a mentor. Hire a coach. Know what you know and know what you don't know. And what you don't know, find a guide. Number 2, get out of your comfort zone. To achieve more than you've ever achieved so far, you have to do something different. Don't limit yourself. Stretch yourself. Push yourself. And know that there's an answer to every challenge that you face. Your job is to find that answer and not to give up. You're going to hear ideas on that. And then number 3, focus on the journey, not just on the goal. Focus on the process that it's going to take to get you to where you want to go. And while you're focusing on this process, enjoy the experience. You can be happy every day as long as you're moving in the right direction of your own choosing. These are 3 powerful suggestions by Gustavo Dantas. And he's going to be a guide at your side. And if you want to overcome the odds that are stacked against you, you need to change your mindset. And you can be a champion and become the ultimate you. Listen to this man, Gustavo Dantas.
There was a 2010 movie starring Denzel Washington titled Unstoppable. You may have seen it. It was about a runaway train that truly was unstoppable. This is a powerful word for you to adopt in your own life. How you can be unstoppable when faced with challenges and obstacles. As you know, your life is filled with challenges, everything from COVID-19, economic slowdown, broken relationships, health issues, and business setbacks. If you think of the people that are close to you, what one word would you choose to describe them? Think of your spouse, or your best friend, or a business associate. Which one word would you choose to describe them? Well, if I had to choose one word to describe Gustavo Dantas, I would choose unstoppable. For the many years that I've known this man, he has overcome obstacles and challenges that would have been very difficult for any ordinary person. He has built a successful martial arts business. He has become a speaker, an author, a podcaster, a father, a husband, a business owner, and yes, your very special guest today. So please help me welcome the unstoppable Gustavo Dantas.
First question that we're going to launch straight into for my good friend here, Gustavo Dantas, world champion, is how did you become such a badass?
That's kind of a tough question. But anyway, I feel that it was a desire of always accepting challenges. Matter of fact, I want to ask you, the listener, a question. I want you to reflect on what's one of the most meaningful quotes that you try to do your best to live in congruence with every day. And that's a same one for you. Robbie, what do you think? What is a quote that you like? Anything that comes to your mind?
Extreme results takes extreme measures. That's a quote I use for my clients all the time. Yeah.
Beautiful. What about you, Joel?
Don't compete, create. Find out what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Beautiful. So for the listener, mine is if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. That I probably heard something when I was a teenager. And for some reason, that hit me in a way that I knew that every time I accepted a challenge, a big challenge, a door would open up. So for the listener, if you think about some of the biggest challenge that you ever accepted in your life, I guarantee you that a big opportunity came out of this decision of accepting this challenge, even though sometimes people think that I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. I'm not talking about the outcome. I'm talking about there's an opportunity for growth, opportunity for improvement, for learning. So I feel that I end up here in the United States now because of the challenges that I started to accept in my life, starting with martial arts. And from there, another, especially coming here to live abroad, another big challenge that I accepted to be able to live here was to learn another language, and was English. So that was a huge challenge that eventually opened doors and I just kept taking on more challenges, and more opportunities just kept showing up. But I feel that you need to be very mindful and open to, because sometimes the opportunities they come in, and if you don't really pay attention, you don't see it, they're going to pass by. So the opportunities come in, and especially if you feel that little tension, that anxiety, probably is the good one. Do it, because it brings some type of fear, and that's the time that I'm like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it because it's bringing some type of discomfort. And I just kept doing this since I was young.
How old were you when you came here, and what did you bring with you?
24 years old in 1999, the beginning of 1999. I came to a competition in 1998, and I ended up doing well. That was my first tournament, my first tournament in the US, and I really loved what I saw. And I came back home. I was graduating college, and I decided it's time for a change. And 3 4 months later, I sold my car and brought, it was $2,700, which I thought it was a lot of money. I don't know where I got that from. But when I came to the US, I realized that it's not as much money as I thought. And one thing that is interesting in taking challenges too is I was learning English. I accepted the challenge when I was 17 years old, that I wanted to learn English. I told my mom I like music, so I wanted to understand what people were saying, movies. So she was able to get me a scholarship. I just needed to keep my grades. So it was twice a week. Basically, I did study English in Brazil twice a week, 3 hours per week for 7 years. But I
Wow.
never had a chance to practice. So about 5 years in, we're training for the World Championship in Brazil, 1997, and they have one American, eventually became my friend, Steve da Silva. And I noticed, and I was being very quiet and introverted. And I noticed after class, people like to chat and talk. And I noticed that he was by himself stretching, and I felt bad. Man, it's hard for you to go to a different country and you just don't know anyone, and now we cannot have conversation, everyone laughing and talking. And I never used my English at all until that point. For some reason that day I woke up brave or something, and I decided I'm gonna go there. So I accept the challenge to go out of my comfort zone and let me try my English, let me see what I can do. And I approached him and said, hey, what's your name? And his eyes just opened. I'm like, oh, you speak English? I'm like, so he actually spoke fairly slow, so I was able to pick up. Next thing, I'm having a conversation. People come over. Gustavo, didn't know we speak English. I said, I didn't know either. And then when you started talking, and we became friends. And because of that, in 1998, he went back to Rio for the World Championship again. Now this time he stayed with me for a few days, and he told me, Gustavo, in about 6 weeks, there'll be a tournament in California. I live in Vegas. You can fly in, you can stay in my house. We're not going to pay for a hotel. We drive to California, to Irvine. You can stay in a hotel with us. So what do you think? And this was 6 weeks away. So now this, and I, at the spot, I said, I'm going. He was like, awesome. That's great. Do you have a visa? I said, no, I don't have a passport or the money, but I'm going. So my question to you, the listener, is if you're getting a situation that someone presents something to you like that, you have 6 weeks to do an international trip that can make a big impact in your career, what would you do? Is either one, it's too close. I don't even have the passport. I don't have the money. I think I'm going to wait for the next one. Or just put all chips in. I'm going. And I had 5 weeks to make it happen. It was it's a long story, but I made it. The 5 weeks I was able to get my visa, which is not, for people don't know, it's not that simple in specific countries to get the visa. And I was able to get it. I was able to raise the money in 5 weeks for the trip. I came to compete. I ended up being the standout of the tournament. And because I accepted this big challenge, some opportunities came up and they said, have you thought about living in the US? And I said, before, no, I never thought about it, but I like what I see. And then from there, that opened the door to be here. So again, I guarantee you that you who are listening right now, you do have a story like that. You do have a challenge that you accepted and a big opportunity came up. I don't know if you took this challenge or not. And very often, this challenge, when you finish this challenge, another challenge present itself. It's another opportunity, but it present itself as another challenge. And now it's up to you to accept it. And if I said, no, let me wait next time, maybe I wouldn't be on this podcast today.
So you're in Brazil, and this guy, what was his name?
Steve.
So Steve was in a jiu-jitsu class in Brazil. And that's when you met him. And then you traveled for a tournament. Now, when you came back and everyone was telling you at the tournament, hey, man, you should really move to the US, you were faced with that opportunity. You're also faced with a big challenge, right? You had to raise this money and move your life to the US. And at that time, and being a jiu-jitsu focused practitioner probably wasn't the easiest thing to raise $2,700. I'm sure of it. So how did you come about the money and the capability to move yourself and have some level of stable position once you got to the US?
When I came to the US, the money wasn't the problem. I sold the car. That was the only thing I had. So that money. But now to come to the first trip to the US, and I don't even know if it was good. It was 2 days before the World Championship in '98. And all I was thinking about it was like, I'm going to make this trip happen. Thank God, and things end up working out. End up doing well at the Worlds in '98 as well. But my mind was thinking, what do I have to do? And I was always very lucky that my brother always guided me with my marketing. And I always had good sponsors because one of the things my brother taught me was, if you're asking for money to someone, make sure you give them a reason why they're going to give you the money. If you're asking for a sponsor, give them a reason. Do you have a proposal? What can you offer back to them? Things like that most of the athletes, they don't do. They just say, hey, do you want to sponsor me? And people are like, why? So you need to give them a good reason. So every time and that was back when internet didn't really exist. So all the sponsors that I got my little proposal, I put under my arm, and I walk in places, and I'll just take no's. And I knew that one day someone was going to say yes. So by the time I decided to do this trip, I already had some sponsors, a drugstore, a gas station, just completely random things out of it. And that's one of the things that is good too, is to just go out of the box. All the competitors, they focus so much on jiu-jitsu companies. I said, no. They're ready. There's so many people going after them, and they don't have a lot of money. Anyway, they try to make up. This is a small business. And I started to go after completely different comps and asking people, do you know anyone that would be interested in sponsoring an athlete? Do you know? And suddenly that started to show up. So I was able to contact 3 sponsors, and I raised the money for the ticket. And then I decided that I need to need extra money for the trip itself. So I start brainstorming. That's something that you need to do. You need to think about, what are the options that I have around me. And around that time in Brazil, I was already going to college. I was teaching, doing all that stuff. And I decided 5 weeks, I don't have a lot of time. Who can I ask for help? Especially in Brazil, elections were getting close. And I knew there's some positions, some local politicians that usually want to get close to the elections, they want to help someone in a community. I'm like, that's my window. I'm going to ask I'm going to look for someone for my neighborhood. And I start asking, and I found one guy that was running for a local position. And someone said, yeah, there's one actually by your house. So I went there, introduced myself to the secretary, say, hey, I'm an athlete. I'm born and raised here. I do this and that. And I got invited to represent Brazil in Vila Isabel. That's the city where I grew up. Is there any way that he would be interested in sponsor? And I already came with my proposal and everything. And then the secretary said, I like you. I like your attitude of coming here and ask for. He'll be back here tomorrow at 11. Please call us at 11. So I said, okay, I call it. So at 11, I called him and he answered, hello, champ. I'm like, I got it. And I knew that I got something. And so I told him my story. I didn't tell him that I already raised the money for the ticket. I need more for, of course, everything else of the trip. And as a good Brazilian politician, he said, oh, you are going. We're going to make it happen. You're going to go. You're going to represent us. Da, da, da. I'm like, no problem. So I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. I said, okay. In 2 days, sorry. So he called me and said, I got someone to pay for half of your ticket. I said, oh, that's awesome. I'll take it. But there's a thing. I'm like, okay, what is the thing? So in Brazil, as I mentioned, it's not that simple to get a visa. So this guy was physical education. He was a personal trainer too. So he already had been denied twice to go to the United States. And he said, there's this guy that we're helping that he wants to go there. He's been denied twice, but if he goes with you as his trainer and he can go in, he'll pay half of your ticket. So we need to go to the embassy together. Said, no problem. Because I was ready. There's an other issue that I was dealing with the embassy. They're asking for more questions and proof and all kinds of stuff. It's not that simple. So I finally got the last piece that I needed. So I went there with him. So when we got at the embassy, I just showed my paperwork and he stamped. I was like, I can't believe. I was super tense. And when this guy started to explain, oh, what are you going to do there? I'm his coach. And then they denied. They said no. And I had someone that walk, like, go to that specific window. This is the one's going to help. So we get out, and this guy that was helping us said, like, how come they said no? I don't know. I was ready to go home and said, no, let's see what I can do. So this politician, his brother was the owner of a newspaper, a local newspaper in Rio. So he said, let's go to the newspaper. So we went back there, and they call the embassy. No one told me. I actually saw that. They called the embassy and said, we had an athlete that came in today that is going to compete in international tournament. He brought his coach with him, and for no reason, he got denied. If he doesn't get approved, we will back with the press in the morning because of prejudice against his color, because he was dark skinned. On the same day, they approved the visa.
Wow.
Because of that.
Wow.
We traveled together. We passed customs. He gave me half of the money and never see him again.
Wow.
So there's a little extra money that I need. There was a huge challenge that presented itself to be how I'm going to make this extra money. I didn't have any. I ran out all my options. I used all the sponsors, and I helped to promote the politician for the time being. He ended up not getting the position, but I did my part of trying to help him with family, saying, hey, this guy's helping me. And that was it. But that was one of the challenges that I have to go through to get to the United States, because just getting the visa, it was a big battle.
Well, you obviously like short-term goals. You like cutting it close. You like putting yourself on the line. You realize the bigger the challenge, the greater the opportunity. I want you to think back, and if you could come to your mind and tell our listener what happened on November 30th, 2012.
Well, that's when my professional career started to change pace. As you mentioned, I'm always looking for some type of challenge. And I kind of stumble into public speaking. just sharing knowledge with my students, doing classes. I started studying mental skills training, life coaching. I started blending mental skills training for competitions and life coaching for myself. So I was test driving everything that I was studying. And after 2 years of, I started noticing the results with myself. I started to share with my students. And the first class, I did a class and I announced, said, hey, whoever wants to come in, I'm going to talk about the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu. Whoever wants to come in, show up, it's free. And 40 people showed up. So I wasn't really expecting all that. And I started doing every other month. And then I was promoting a tournament, a seminar. There was a 2-day event. And I always thought about, I'd love to have a 3-day event. So one day it's speaking, but I've never done anything like that. So maybe a month earlier, or basically a month, just 3 weeks. I think a month before, I met Joel.
Nope.
Through
Sorry
Robbie.
to correct you, my friend. It was November 12th.
3 weeks before, or less than 3 weeks?
Well, the 12th to the 13th is 18 days. So
less than 3.
A little over 2 weeks. And also you had 72 people that paid to be at the event. He didn't have a program. He didn't have a setup. He had never done anything like this before. And not only did 72 people pay, but at least half of them came from out of state to hear about the mental side of competing. And that's when we met. And the day Robbie brought me into your office at your studio to talk about how can you put this program together in 18 days. And of course, as you're listening to this, you have no idea what's involved to do something like this pretty much from scratch, even though, as Gustavo said, he's done this before. But remember the premise. You want a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. And he sure did accept the big challenge to do this. And not only did he do it, he killed it. And I sat there for that whole seminar on the 30th of November, 2012 in Mesa, Arizona. And I believe it was a 9.27 on a 1 to 10 scale that they critiqued his presentation after it was over. It was amazing. And I had never seen this happen before. I've coached thousands of people, but a person who has English as a second language, who has never done a seminar like this before at that extent, in a beautiful hotel, in a fancy ballroom, had no idea about the audiovisual equipment. And matter of fact, I set up the screen and used my projector to save him some money, and he killed it. So that's the mindset that you're listening to as you hear what Gustavo has to say. But what about you? You might have no interest in jiu-jitsu. You might have no interest in doing a seminar. But you have challenges and you have the ability to communicate. And what he did to get the sponsor in Brazil with the politician, what he did to find that fellow that he befriended by talking to him in English, even though he wasn't skilled enough in English for most people to have a conversation, he said he stepped out of his comfort zone. So that's what you've got to be thinking of. If you want to be a Gustavo, get out of your comfort zone, take on bigger challenges, and great opportunities occur. And how did you feel once you pulled that off on November 30th, 2012?
I was satisfied for sure, because the short amount of time. And one thing that it's important to share with you, the listener, who might be considering getting, maybe you're already a public speaker, but you never even worked with someone. And not just with public speaking, but being humble enough to realize that I need help. Could I do that by myself? Sure. Would it look the way it did? Absolutely not. We could definitely do it by yourself, but no, it wasn't going to look like that. So in that short amount of time, everything that basically Joe was able to share with me, I was trying to absorb as much as I could. And of course, Joe went so far beyond to help me with the hotel and everything that happened. And in that short amount of time, it definitely made a huge impact in the rest of my career, just because I accept that challenge of, okay, I'm putting a seminar. I had no business in doing the public speaking in my mind at first. And then after I got the tools with Joe, I started to transfer the same knowledge to a lot other opportunities. The speak engagement was one of them. And it was awesome because of that event. And then there was a specialized magazine that came out, and they covered the event, and it had a 7-page article on a magazine of that event that I wouldn't have, if, of course, if I didn't have accepted that challenge. And that from there, I started to accept other challenges. And one of them that I mention to people to this day is the opportunity to do online courses and so forth. I think a big problem that a lot of people face is, I'm going to wait until when I do this and this, and then I'm going to do it. And Joe, as he's so experienced, he caught that on me right away. He said, you need to create a program. And I was already thinking about it. So yeah, program as far as online, or back then was a DVD. And I said, yes, I'm waiting to do this course and this, and then I'm going to do the course. I'm just waiting to get better. And Joe said, Gustavo, here's the thing. And I remember this very well, Joe. He said, Gustavo, you're a perfectionist. Everything you do, you're never going to find a 10. You're always going to find a way to get better. So get a program that in your scale, it's a 7. No problem. Maybe your next program, a 2.0, it's an 8. Whatever scale you do, but get the ball rolling. You gotta do it. And that's when I basically, on that day, well, I didn't have any excuse. On that day, I booked a hotel. 3 weeks I announced online, because I want a live audience, and I invited 20 people who had never watched me speaking. I hired a crew to film the whole program. We had a buffet. It was very nice. So I basically, people enrolled and said why they feel that it would benefit being on the recording for the program. And when I announced, I didn't have the program ready. I had 3 weeks to, of course, I have the idea, but I didn't have the program ready. And it was a huge challenge to pull that off and come up with a program. And it worked out great. And as soon as I finished, more opportunities came up, because after the speaking, more speaking opportunities came up. As I started to work on this online program, other opportunities came up, and then had the opportunity to write a book. So I wrote a book, and everything based on the concepts that I got from the Ultimate Speaking System. Everything that Joe shared with me, writing or speaking, and something that Joe said, Gustavo, if it's 1 minute, 2 hours, you have the building blocks, you're going to deliver the same way. It's not about really the time. It's just to get in your message lined up and everything. And basically that's what I did. And that's how some of the challenges start to present itself. I kept accepting them. And now one of the latest, been a few years now with my podcast. I have a podcast in Portuguese, in English. So basically everything that I do regarding to my business is using the skills from speaking. But with all that said, it's definitely not trying to impress you that I've done this, I've done that. It's really to convey to you that when you really accept a big challenge, incredible opportunities will present itself in your life. Now it's up to you that when this challenge presents itself to you, you're going to accept or not. If you do, I guarantee you that big opportunities will present itself for you.
Well, that's absolutely true. And then when November 30th was over, before the day ended, I think you had 3 people wanted to book you to come and talk to their people and pay you. And then how many countries have you spoken in as a result of that one? And we call it the domino effect. You've seen that on television where the first domino falls and then 10,000 of them follow it. Well, that day on November 30th, 2012, the first domino came down. And then there were three more that followed it very quickly. So what countries have you spoken in?
Canada, Norway, England, some traveling because I would compete, I would teach jiu-jitsu, I would speak. So different situations that I was able to present
In the
what I
Middle
was
East,
learning.
too. Didn't you do some in
in
the
Abu
Middle East?
Dhabi.
Abu
In
Dhabi,
Abu
yeah.
Dhabi, yeah. So a few different situations, but yes, the speaking opened up so many doors for me just because of a challenge. I would not be where I'm at professionally today if it wasn't for the both of you, because Robbie introduced me to you, and I remember when he said like, "Hey, I have a good friend that you have to meet him," because I was doing a belt promotion at that night, and I think I did maybe a 5-minute speech or something. So he asked me, and hey, have you heard of Toastmaster? And I said no. Matter of fact, that week I was Googling public speaking. I had no idea. So let me put on, and then I remember like, oh, I read about that. So yeah, maybe about 3 weeks later, I was doing a presentation.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
what about, because we haven't talked about the fitness. So we obviously have seen how when you accept these big challenges, you have the greater opportunities. And one of the things that's always been remarkable about you that Robbie has shared with me, since you've worked out together, you've trained Robbie in jujitsu, you work out together, on your great physical condition. And, you know, of course, we talk about my age, a few months from 80 right now, and Robbie and you know, half my age. So what about that physical condition? How have you been able to stay so healthy and fit and strong all of these years?
Well, it does help that it's part of my career to teach jiu-jitsu to be healthy. So I'm very blessed with that, to be able to work out anytime I want. And I feel that for someone who does not live around sports or physical activities, it's about priority, to make sure that if they do want to improve and have the opportunity to feel even healthier, they will have to accept the challenge of going out of their comfort zone to create their routine. And the same way that I ask for help in a public speaking for my training, I ask for help uh, for Robbie. That means I need a help to someone to guide me with that. So I just feel that if people feel that they need help, they need to ask. Because a lot of people say, no, we're just going to start walking, and then I do this and do that, and time goes by and nothing changes. And then there's times that asking for help will definitely help with their journey. And I guess it's the discipline that comes in, that if you, whether you're with a trainer or not, especially if you by yourself, of having your routine down, and no matter what, you're going to get up and you're going to do the work that you need to get the results that you want.
You know, we really should have had this at the beginning of our talk. But Gustavo, you're so humble that I'm like, I have to brag for you a little bit here to kind of bring out some of your big accolades. Like, you know, when I talk about Gustavo Dantas, which my Brazilian wife always reminds me of how to pronounce your name properly. It's not Dantes, it's Dantas. So, you know, I think of you as the #1 jiu-jitsu entrepreneur in Arizona, jiu-jitsu specific, right? Because, you know, you've run all the most competitive tournaments. I think you have like, what, 700 or 800 entries in some of your bigger tournaments. Is that correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
1,000.
1,000. Yeah. So 1,000. And, you know, your school has been very successful. And this is a guy that came here with a suitcase and $2,700. So, you know, that is absolutely huge. You've won huge tournaments. You've won the title of world champion. So, you know, all of those things were big opportunities that presented a big challenge. And yeah, so let's talk about, how did you go from $2,700 in a suitcase to running all of those successful tournaments and being like the jiu-jitsu guy in Arizona?
Good question. One time I was in a meeting of the National Speaker Association, and I had a fellow speaker called Ian Percy, I believe. He went there to speak once, and they had a simple book. I'm not gonna remember the title, but he had a little mastermind session. Whoever wants to learn more, I like what he had to say. And one of the quotes that he shared, I want to share with you is, let your irritations inspire you. With that said, when I moved to Arizona, I started to promote in Brazil. In 1998, I promoted one tournament. I lived in Vegas. I promoted once. And so when I came to Arizona in 2000, I went to a local tournament and it was a disaster. It was so unorganized, very disrespectful to the crowd, to the competitors, to coaches. And I went a second time, a couple months later, I went again, and it was the same thing. So I realized, well, there's a pattern going on here. This is not going to change. Apparently, no one's going to do anything. So if there's something that really irritates you, well, can you do better than what you're doing? So do something about it. So that's what I thought about. I let that irritation inspire, because people can say, oh my God, I'll never go back there. I just figured out I can do better than that. And I'll show it. My first event had 40 people, just rent some chairs, and a lot of pushback from, there's not that many people in Arizona as far as the jiu-jitsu community. But I just decided, and then people didn't really know who's this guy. He's trying to make money. Those Brazilians, they come here. I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep doing. Whoever wants to come here, the doors are open. So basically for 4 years, I promoted the tournament inside the school, because we just didn't have enough people to rent a facility to do a tournament, because the community was too small. Jiu-jitsu was not that popular. So finally, after 4 years, we broke 100 people and had 115 competitors. So that was my clue. Okay, now I need to move up. So I rent a small gym in Tempe, a small church, and we had about 150 people. And from there, we start growing. We just start having different goals. Okay, next goal is 200 people, 300, 400, and dealing with other things along the way. Other promoters with not very good practice, they knew that they had a tournament, and then purposely they were put on the same day to try to compete against me. So there's like a lot of nonsense thing, until finally 2009, he was trying, but he couldn't keep up anymore, because my service is not just me, the service that we're offering, it's just a completely different level. And basically he stopped promoting because people didn't want to go there anymore. So that's another tip, that focus on your business, on your journey. Don't focus on what everyone else is doing. So he was so worried about, and I know that they would have meetings saying, Gustavo is offering this, Gustavo is doing that. So he was so focused on what other people were doing, he forgot his own business. He ran out of business because of that. So make sure that you get in the business for the right reasons. And yeah, if there's something that's irritating you and you feel that you can do better, okay, go out of your comfort zone, accept this challenge, that I guarantee you that a huge opportunity is going to present itself. And basically that's what it did. Now we have removing COVID from 2020, because it's a different deal. But I'm already preparing basically for 2022 now. But we have 6 events a year, and we're reaching between 4,500 and 5,000 people a year.
Wow. That's awesome. And, in these tournaments and in the fight world, including the UFC and some of the biggest promotions in the world, you've had personal, specific individual fighters come to you as their mental coach. You've done mental coaching with some of the best in the world, right? And so what are kind of some of the things, maybe a couple of the big things that both the best fighters in the world and an entrepreneur could both use in the same, to be able to be a better achiever, I know you've done so much psychological, mental work as well. That's how you partly become an expert in that. You've gone through all these challenges. What are 2 things that people could use to really improve their mindset, feel more calm, feel that tranquility in the face of challenge and in the face of overcoming, and ensure their success?
From what I notice from jiu-jitsu or MMA, one of the mistakes I started to study that to try to understand myself better, my fears and anxieties. I wanted to understand better. But when I notice is the one of the biggest ones, people focus too much on the outcome instead of the process. Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Is the business going to work? Is it not going to work? Instead of focus on the process of getting ready and the performance itself when we're talking about especially a competition, because you cannot control the outcome if you're going to win or lose a tournament. You can't control the outcome if the business is going to work on it. You can influence the outcome if you put all the work, you focus on the process, your performance. And I'm not saying that you can set the goal that the outcome, this is what I'm striving for, and you put on the shelf and put in a box and put in a shelf, like, okay, it's right there. Now, what do you have to do in order to have better chance of achieving the outcome that you want that is in a box? So you already settle, okay, you set what you want. This is the goal that you want. But now focus on the process or the layout of like, this is the road that I need to go through to have better, nothing is guaranteed, but to have better odds of achieving the outcome that you want, and to be able on the day of the, let's say, a presentation, to be able to focus on the performance. And going back to the first speaking engagement that I had, I wasn't concerned about if people going to like or if they're not going to like. I believed in the content, and that's very important for you to believe in your message. I believe because I lived. No one told me everything that I was sharing. No one necessarily told me. There's life experiences. If I didn't experience, I wouldn't share. And so I felt confident with that. I just want to make sure that I delivered the crystal clear, as Joe always said, to make sure that there's no doubt this is the message. So that helped me to focus on the process. On the day of the performance, that means deliver it. All I want is just enjoy the process, enjoy the performance, let's say, enjoy that moment. That a lot of the times entrepreneurs or athletes, they end up not enjoying the moment, is because there's so much built up anxiety and concern of if people going to like or know what they're going to say, instead of just really focus on the process and the performance itself. And I feel that this you can transfer this entrepreneurship, sports, anything really.
That's a huge thing I've learned from you in the mental coaching and Joel in the speaking, is that focus on your audience, focus on that. If all your attention is focused on the audience, or all your attention is focused on your opponent and what you need to do in terms of your skill and execution, then you're not focused on yourself. You're not getting that identity crisis and ego issues and drop of self-esteem and all these things that can come into your head. And really, whether you're speaking on stage to earn a living, or you're on the jiu-jitsu mat in a world championship fight, it's either way, those skills can drastically improve. And I've seen that for sure.
What would be number two? If number one is focus on the process, not the outcome, what would be your second great takeaway for our listener?
I feel that it's enjoying the process, what you're doing. There's some of my friends that fought. I remember it's nice to see the progression they have from the beginning, sometimes having a little more anxiety, but then getting to a point of enjoying what you do, enjoying the process, living in the moment. Because this is for everyone, but the way that a lot of them started to think is, you're not going to be doing this here, especially we're talking competing high level in something like UFC. So you understand that you're not going to be doing this forever, right? There is a short amount of time to do it. So might as well enjoy what you're doing, be present with this, because one day you're going to look back and say, wow, I wish I was younger to be able to do that. I wish I could accept more challenges, but it might be too late for accept a challenge like that. There are different challenges for you accept, but when you're talking high level, but now I feel that it's enjoying what you do, enjoying the process. I'm so blessed, and I think about this when I go to my business, to my school in the morning. Sometimes I wake up and I think, wow, how lucky I am. In Brazil, there's so many people going to work, getting 2 buses, being stuck in traffic for 2 hours in a bus to go to a place that they don't like, which is hard. But it's some of the choices that you make along the way. Sometimes people don't have as many opportunities. I totally understand. But I mean, you make your opportunities too. Accepting some big challenge, making some of the opportunities, they will present itself. Now you need to have the clarity to recognize, that's a pretty good challenge that I know that it would turn into a good opportunity. And I feel that I'm lucky that since 2005, I only work with what I like. 2005 was the last year that I was doing house cleaning and doing different things to do what I had to do. But I knew that at one point it was going to change. So it's not like I don't like what I do, I'm going to stop this and suddenly do this. Maybe you can do that. But one of the quotes that Jim Rome always talked about was work full-time when you live in part-time when you dream, and eventually with discipline and patience, this part-time can become your full-time. And basically that's what happened with me. I moved to the United States. I wasn't working with jiu-jitsu at all. I was working in construction. It just happened that with 3 weeks to 4 weeks, what was in the US, a situation presented itself. Someone called the academy that I was just training there. I wasn't teaching. I was just going there twice a week. And they called, we're looking for an instructor for this place. Was in Henderson, Nevada. And my friend John that owns the school, he was like, Gustavo, do you want to teach in Henderson? I'm like, absolutely. I need some money. Like I need to get a job because I was just doing whatever I could do. But at the same time, it looked so far like how I'm going to make a living with this. And then from 99 to 2005, I was doing jiu-jitsu and doing other things. And then 2005 was I finally reached the point that I don't need to work with people that I don't want to or do things that I don't want anymore. And all align with, I feel that it's my mission. And I feel that everyone is find your purpose, do your best to live in congruence with your purpose. And mine is to inspire and impact and improve people's life in some way. And hopefully I can do this to you in some way with this podcast.
Well, the joy that you've expressed over the years in watching you really was good. I remember after watching the joy you had putting together that program, I remember going to the gym one day to work out with Robbie. And there was a guy I would see all the time, and we'd meet at the sign-in desk. And he said, I just hate coming in here. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I just hate working out. I said, but you're here every time I come in. He said, oh, yeah, I'm in here all the time, but I hate it. I said, now, why would you do something you hate? Aren't you coming here because you know that when you work out, you're going to get your body so much stronger, more flexible, and in better balance. And as a result, your life is going to be better. Well, yeah, of course. That's why I come in here. I said, why would you say you hate it? So what are you talking about? Why don't you come in here just thinking how much I love coming to the gym because this is what helps me get in great shape. And then I didn't talk to him anymore. And the next time I see him checking in, he said, I just love coming to this gym. And it's just that mindset that you've had. And I think that's such a wonderful second point to enjoy what you're doing, because the first idea was to focus on the process. And like that guy checking into the gym, the process was to work out, to do his program. And he loved doing that once he realized that's what got him the results. And you've given us a lot of great results. So, Robbie, what do you got to wrap it up?
Well, what I got to wrap it up is a third instead of second, all third, exactly what you guys are saying. And that's what I've told clients for the last 20 years, which is fall in love with the action. So when someone asks me, hey, what should I do to get fit? What's the best thing? And then they're not exercise or they're not really in. Well, let's start with what you love to do, and then let's build off of that. And usually anything we should do as humans is going to be what we're best at is also what we're going to love. So fall in love with those. And when it's something like health, there's some exercise you like to do. Maybe you don't want to go to the gym, but maybe you like rowing and swimming, right? So your exercise is rowing and swimming. You're going to get great results from that. So, and in business, how many things can you do to build your business or have a great business? There's so many. You don't need to do Facebook ads, for example, if you don't like social media. There's other forms of marketing that you can be amazing at, and you can love, and you can love the actions in, and you can do on a daily, weekly basis and get amazing results. So, I love your quote, Gustavo, in finishing. If you're looking for a big opportunity, then you better accept a big challenge, and you better fall in love with the actions that are required to achieve that big challenge.
Well, did you enjoy Gustavo? Did you get something out of what he shared with you? And he shared it in such a powerful and clear way. So here are some of the things that he did that you can do when you're expressing yourself and you're sharing your wisdom, your ideas, and your experiences. Number one, be you. Both Robbie and I have known Gustavo for many years. He's been a friend, a coach, and a student. And the thing that makes him so unique and special as a speaker is he's himself. He's not putting on an act for you. And that's what you should do. Be you. It's so much easier being yourself, and it requires no effort. Okay, number two, be humble. Humility is a wonderful quality for you to possess as a speaker. And Gustavo expresses this so beautifully. He doesn't brag about himself or what he was able to achieve. It just had to be drawn out of him. Robbie and I had to do the bragging. He then explained those things. And that's what you should be doing. Don't brag about yourself. Explain what happened so others can do it too. And then number three, tell stories. You've heard that expression, one picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, one story is worth 1,000 pictures. And Gustavo told you so many stories. Your stories can hold your audience's attention and make the complicated clear and the confusing simple. And that's what you need to do. Tell even more stories and make sure that you make the point of the story very clear to your listener. Yes, you do have challenges. And yes, you have obstacles. Yet in spite of those challenges and obstacles, you can become a champion. You can become the ultimate you. Now use these ideas that Gustavo shared with you and the speaking skills that he shared them with you as well. And now go out and make it a great day. Go to theultimateyoupodcast.com. When your mind and body are working in harmony, you develop the ultimate you. You think quicker and you feel good all the time. And when you're thinking quicker and feeling good all the time, you can express yourself even better, and you're going to have the energy to achieve the things that you want. And as a result, you're going to make even more money. You'll have free tools that will help you do all of this and even more. Again, by just going to ultimateyoupodcast.com.